TYT is partnering with Participant Media to help solve the climate crisis. Wouldn't that be great? Now, look, you got to check out our series, 10 Days of Action, to learn more about what you can do to make a difference. And go see an Inconvenient sequel, Truth to Power, in theaters in New York and LA on July 28th and nationwide August 4th.
When it comes to the immigration debate in the United States, oftentimes those who are here without citizenship status are those who are painted as criminals or the bad guys. But a recent investigative report by the Associated Press indicates that there's a church in North Carolina that purposely traffics humans from Brazil with the sole intent of using them as slaves. Slave labor. Now, this is the World of Faith Fellowship, and it used its 2 church branches in Latin America's largest nation to siphon a steady flow of young laborers who come on tourist and student visas to its 35-acre compound. Now, this church was started by a woman by the name of Jane Whaley, and according to dozens of people that the Associated Press spoke to, she has done terrible things and has threatened individuals who have said that they would speak out against the type of slave labor that they've been victimized by. So one individual who has experienced this firsthand says, they trafficked us up here. They knew what they were doing. They needed labor and we were cheap labor. Hell, free labor. So they did not get paid. The men and young boys in some cases who were brought from Brazil had to do tough labor, construction jobs. They had to work on the homes of some of the officials that worked for the church. And then the young girls who were brought here were forced to work hours on end, taking care of children, babysitting, things like that. So this was actually something that was tipped off to police years ago. In 2014, 3 ex-congregants told an assistant US attorney that the Brazilians were being forced to work for no pay. And I don't know what happened or whether or not there was an investigation, but what I do know is that nothing was really done. There was no outcome of that effort to draw attention to this issue. Also, they beat up anyone who tries to raise concerns or speak out about the treatment that they're facing. One other person says, most definitely one of the former congregants responded, ministers mostly bring them up here for free work, another said.
The most definitely was in response to whether they were beaten.
Right.
So let's review this. They capture you and you can't go anywhere because they took, in the relationship to the R. Kelly story, if you remember from a week ago, I said, don't let anybody take your phone and don't let anybody take your passport, because what they're trying to do is control you. And so in R. Kelly's case, it was the phones. In this case, it's the passports. So they can't go anywhere. They literally can't go anywhere. And so a lot of them didn't even speak English. They get brought up and it's made to work for 15-hour days as young as when they are 12.
Yes.
And when you involve physical beatings, I mean, that's the definition of slavery, where you're captured, you're not allowed to go anywhere, and you're beaten and made to work for free. So, and it's done under the guise of a church. Look,
it gets so much worse. There were arranged marriages. I want to give you guys as many details as possible, but I highly recommend that you read the full report. We'll include a link in the description box below. Based on exclusive interviews with 43 former members, documents, and secretly made recordings, the Associated Press reported in February that congregants were regularly punched, smacked, and choked in an effort to purify sinners by beating out devils. So what are some of the things that they got beaten for? Here's an example. Anyone in the bathroom for more than the mandated 5 minutes was suspected of committing the sin of masturbation, and Whaley would be called to the house to decree the punishment. And they would literally beat these victims up to get the devil out of them or to beat the sin out of them. If any of the males appeared to be having an impure thought, Barbosa said, everybody would be awakened, ordered to surround him and repeatedly shake him and shriek into his ears to expel the devils, a word of faith practice called blasting.
So that's if they thought he was having an impure dream. How the hell do you know what kind of dream he's having?
This is insane. And they were, they were living in unsafe conditions. Several people, dozens of people crammed in a basement. It's just sick. And they were told all sorts of things, all sorts of promises before coming here to the US. You're gonna come, you're gonna see the US, we're gonna allow you to go to school. But then they would overwork these kids to the point where they didn't have an opportunity to study or go to school at all.
So look, in the old days, we were told to respect authority figures. Now, it's not right to go completely in the opposite direction and say don't ever respect any authority figures. That's crazy. But we have learned that we have to be a lot more careful. Some people use their position of power to oppress other people and for their own enjoyment, pleasure, benefit, etc. So how many stories do you have to see before you get that through your head? Because it's a church, if you automatically trust it, you're nuts. So that doesn't mean you shouldn't trust any church. No, there's some wonderful churches out there. Lots of wonderful religious organizations and plenty of terrible ones. But if you say, no, but wait, I have faith. Well, these kids had faith. Their parents had faith when they sent them to North Carolina and they got signed up for modern day slavery. You cannot have faith without reason, because how else would you know what to put your faith in? So when you are assessing something, just because it's a religious organization doesn't mean it is exempt from reason or how you would normally judge a situation, and it's whether it's safe, not safe, productive, helpful, or not any of those things. And yes, I got bad news for you. Many religious organizations do the most horrific things. Why? Think about it. It's like, why do the foot fetish guys become shoe salesmen? Why do the child molesters become sometimes, unfortunately, coaches or priests? Because they've got they've got marks there that they consider to be easy marks, right? And so they think, oh, kids, their parents trusted them with me, and they told them to put their complete trust in me. Now, in a church, what are you told all the time? Don't question. What was the forbidden fruit that they ate in Genesis? They ate from the tree of knowledge, and that's what got them kicked out of Eden. They tell you, don't believe in knowledge, don't think for yourself, just this is the dogma of the book, have faith in it, and whoever's up on that pulpit, trust them 100%. When you do that, this result in some instances is guaranteed. Power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. And if you give blind faith and allegiance, there's an excellent chance terrible things will happen.
Right. And these kids weren't able to communicate with their parents because their phones were taken away, and there were arranged marriages because the church had more women than men, and so some of the men that were brought from Brazil were essentially forced to marry some of the women who weren't married yet. It's just insane, and the fact that authorities had learned about what was really going on years ago and nothing happened is concerning, to say the least. But I'm grateful that the Associated Press stayed on this story and uncovered what's really going on.
And look, churches get a free ride in 1,000 different ways. And look, all the religions do it. Parts of Islam, of course they do. Look at what the Taliban does to young boys, Hazara boys.
Yep.
And it's just grotesque what happens. It happens in Hinduism, it happens in Judaism, it happens in all the religions. But in heavily Christian North Carolina, if it's a Christian group doing it, well, do you really want to go after a church? That might be politically disadvantageous. So let them keep doing whatever they're doing, even though it is horrific. Thank you, Associated Press. That's great journalism. Thank you for exposing it so they could put an end to it. If you like this video, you probably like independent media. The best way to support independent media, become a member of the Young Turks. TYTnetwork.com/join.